Welcome back to Wartime Cafe. This is Laith Marouf from Free Palestine TV. We are in Nostalgia Cafe in the Laith, close to a whole block destroyed in al-Hadath neighborhood, destroyed by the Zionists during their war on Lebanon. We have with us a new guest, Mariam Mohammad, coordinating committee member for the Civil Society and Indigenous Peoples Mechanism, as part of the Committee of World Food Security at the Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO. Welcome, Mariam. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Laith, for having me.
Mariam, we're going to get to talk about all the important work that you've been doing at the UN in terms of food security for our region. But before that, I would like to get our viewers to know more about your background and how you got where you are now doing this amazing work. You are from the south, from Merkaba, right on the border with occupied Palestine, and that must have obviously affected your childhood and your upbringing. Tell us about Merkaba, your father's family and your mother's family in Beirut.
Yes,
it's hard to pronounce probably for a lot of people. And I almost pronounced it in my Bedouin accent, Brega. You know, tell us about the Merkaba and how living in the south of Lebanon pushed you to get to where you are today.
So basically, we're from Merkaba. It was occupied for 18 years prior to the year 2000, and there was many years of war in Lebanon prior to the 18 years occupation. There was the Israeli invasion. Before of it, there was the civil war still raging across Lebanon. And my father, I still remember his words. He said that he would never enter the country passing through an Israeli checkpoint to his village, So, which made my father not visit the village for over 18 years. And this was something that, if you want to look into it more, he believed a lot that the village will be liberated. And this is why he said, I wouldn't pass through an Israeli checkpoint to get to my village, because I will pass one day without that checkpoint and the humiliation on it. And for this reason, they used to be displaced a lot during the Israeli invasion and prior to it during the civil war. And so here comes my mom's village in South Lebanon, which is not as close to the border as Merkaba. It's a lot farther, if you want to describe, close to Nabatiyya. This made them make a choice of building a small house in Beirut, so they would not be displaced to other people's houses when they want to flee Beirut or so. And this made us have a home in Beirut, and later, after Merkaba was liberated in the year 2000, we had our grandparents' house in Merkaba and my uncle's houses. So I do remember the day of the liberation. My father was waiting outside the school. He put us in the car, and to my great surprise, we didn't go straight to Merkaba. We went to al-Khiyam. My grandmother, to my mom, is from Khiyam. So we went to Khiyam, to the prison, to the detention camp in Khiyam. We visited the detention camp and then went to Merkaba. I would never forget this. I was only 8 years old back then on the Liberation Day, and I would never forget these moments and these days. The visiting of the detention camp, the smell of blood in it, all of these scenes, and then visiting Merkaba. I do believe that this was a point of planting something inside of me that would grow later on to put me into all of these spaces of, I don't know if you want to call it activism or I don't know what you like. Yes, if you want
Liberation.
To call it. Yes, exactly. So I think that this was the first planting this inside of me. These were the days, I would say.
So you obviously now Merkaba has been targeted again, and I'm not sure you went. I think you didn't go back since the end of the war yet. But what's the news about your family's homes and so on in Mecca?
I do know that my family's houses have been destroyed completely. I do know that there are many, I don't know how to explain this, the scene, the general scene in the village, the lands, it has been changed completely. I've heard a lot from families that we do know in the village also that their homes have been destroyed, their families' houses have been destroyed. They changed it completely, apparently. Little stands in Merkaba.
And you went and studied business management, finance, and banking, but it seems like that's not where you're working.
No, I did know that when I was studying business and when I then later on did banking and finance, I did know that this was not my place. And this is why it was only an M1 in banking and finance, and I did not continue. And I went to be working in the field of media and public relations after my graduation.
And you are married to a Syrian citizen.
Yes.
Obviously, Psychospico, cut up the nation here, our land, our peoples, and created all these states and borders. A lot of Lebanese women suffer from the Psychospico effect.
Of course.
How is it being married to a Syrian, having children with a Syrian, as a Lebanese woman, and how does this affect your outlook for the future of how to take care of this family?
So my husband and I, we met because of Palestine. So we were both working something for Palestine, and this is where we got to know each other. So here's where Sykes-Picot for us would fall completely. So it was Palestine, Syria, and Lebanon. And it was a big decision to make in Lebanon because the Lebanese women do not have the right to give their family citizenship, and it's a French law in our constitution that we have failed up until today to amend. And every time they speak about amending this law in our constitution, they say except for those who married Palestinians and Syrians, so it's even harder for us. And I guess that this is one of the main things that pushed us later on, along with my husband, to leave Lebanon, even if momentarily, but we moved from Lebanon to Brazil. Because it was too much for us to be living here without any, I don't know how to say this, maybe in English the right word. Security, without feeling home. When you are literally home, but you're not home, because you have decided to marry someone from Syria. So you're always cast away if you want, in the laws and work and school and everything. So we made the decision to move. We still come here, we're still here, but we had to move to a place maybe that we could feel more as a family, that we are one in that place.
And now you have Brazilian citizenship?
No, we didn't. No, we didn't acquire it yet. We haven't been this long in Brazil. But maybe.
Inshallah, we'll discuss more about Brazil in a second. But you started working with the Arab group for protection of nature, and that led you to be elected at the Arab Network of Food Sovereignty and to represent them at the UN Committee on World Food Security. At the Civil Society and Indigenous Peoples Mechanism. That's a big stage to jump onto, and you're definitely representing a huge part of the Arab society that's working on this. Explain to us why food sovereignty for our people here is important, and how is our enemy, the Zionists and imperialists, working against our food sovereignty?
It's everything. Food sovereignty is everything, and maybe Gaza now is our biggest example. How when they take from us our food sovereignty, they could punish us with our food. Immediately they punish us with our food. that people are reaching to a place that they are dying of starvation in Gaza as part of the war against them, as part of the political war against them, as part of displacing them completely from their land. And this is why food sovereignty is so important. It's everything towards the road of liberation. It's a key element, and this is why.
The Arab Group for Protection of Nature is involved in this new campaign here in Lebanon to replant all the olive orchards that were damaged and or destroyed by the Zionist war on Lebanon. Tell us a little bit, especially that you are from the south, about the damage affected these olive orchards and other agricultural lands in South Lebanon, and what would the Arab Network for Food Sovereignty do to help?
Apparently, look, I honestly do not have accurate numbers now. I guess nobody has accurate numbers now because it's been problematic to be able to work freely in the villages amid the continuous Israeli attacks and threats to anybody who tries to do anything regarding rebuilding or repair of lands and so. But I do know how devastating the damage was for the agriculture sector in the south. Maybe something that I would take it to a more family level or a people's level, that how much of a disaster it is that nobody was able to get their olive harvest this year from the south. And I do remember that before even the Israeli let's say Israeli open war, during the attacks on the south, before it went to an open war, so starting from October 7 up until the open war, I do remember that the white phosphorus that was being dropped on South Lebanon was mainly targeted to burn all of these lands. And from that point on, the agricultural sector of the south was being destroyed in a very studied way, which leads us again to food sovereignty in order to also prevent or to deprive the southerners from their food sovereignty, from their ability to access their food. And I do remember also that when the crops were still available, there was, I don't know where this came from, the statements about how the white phosphorus is poisoning the crops. So even if the farmers did harvest their crops, nobody wanted to buy them in Lebanon because they believed it was poisoned by the white phosphorus and so. And even in that, before the lands were destroyed completely and burned completely, the crops, there was also a war on not taking the crops from the south because it was believed that they were harmful or poisoned or so. And how did the role of the Arab Network and the Arab Group for Protection of Nature, it brings us to what you attended in replanting the olive orchards and other types of land in the south. This is how they used to work in Palestine, in the West Bank, and they are working currently in Gaza. So whenever a land is being burned or destroyed and the crops in it are lost entirely, they try to replant. They try to fix the irrigation systems. They try to support in these manners as much as, of course, their budgets or their ability as an organization allows. Because, of course, if you speak West Bank, South Lebanon, Gaza, it's a huge land in terms of space. And this is where they come. They try as much as they can to cover lands.
Yeah. The Arab Group for Protection of Nature planted around 4 million olive trees in the West Bank mainly. They are trying now to plant thousands of trees in Lebanon. The whole region of the quote-unquote Fertile Crescent or Greater Syria has been severely damaged over the last 30 years with the poisoning of the island between the two great rivers, with all the depleted uranium American bombardment of Iraq and Syria, and as we see the destruction and or looting of olive trees in Syria itself by the Turkish occupation, by the Zionists here in Lebanon and in Palestine, this issue of food sovereignty for the Fertile Crescent, I mean, it seems our enemy is purposefully hitting this strong point that kept our peoples able to be free from occupation and colonization. Looking through the work that you have with the Arab Network of Food Sovereignty, is there enough people involved in this work? Do we need more efforts?
Certainly there's not enough. We do need a lot of focus on this topic. It doesn't seem a priority for many people because maybe a lot of people don't look at it as a political issue, but it is a very political issue. Many people look at it as something maybe minor or I don't know how to say it, but it is a very political matter. As I said before, it is very related to, and it's a key element in the full liberation that we are looking at. We do need a lot of people working in this field, of course. Mentioning Syria, during the discussions in the UN Committee on World Food Security, between 2022 and 2023, we were working on the MIPA, which is the multi-year plan of work. It's like the plan of work that the committee puts over the 4 upcoming years. And we were talking and discussing, and there was a suggestion made by several countries to include the topic of effects of sanctions and unilateral measures on food security around the world. And of course, it was a very sensitive topic within the committee, and you would guess the countries that would never accept this language and this kind of process to be discussed in the committee. And well, I, through this civil society and indigenous peoples mechanism, I represent West Asia on behalf of the Arab Food Network for Food Sovereignty. I was getting the CSIPM to support this proposal to be included in the multi-year plan of work. And I would always, during the discussions of the advisory group and the CFS, I would always highlight how Syria was a self-sufficient country. And Syria was fought in its food sovereignty. And it was in many places, I don't like to use the term, but like bringing someone to their knees with food, weaponizing food and waging wars through food. So Syria was self-sufficient before all of this, and then it was a country that needed aid to feed its people. And I also highlighted how there was a recent report by the FAO and WFP, and it was highlighting the hunger hotspots around the world in 2023. So I did my research, and during the advisory group meeting, I told them that the FAO report said that there are 22 hunger hotspots around the world. And among of these 22 countries are 14 countries that are hunger hotspot, and they are under sanctions and a form of unilateral measures against them. So it's like 64% of the hunger hotspots around the world, and this is a report by the FAO. And I was pushing towards this, the adoption of this work process on how sanctions and unilateral measures are affecting food security around the world. And what I got during this advisory meeting is one of the countries, one of the Western countries, I would name it, it's okay and it's totally fine, but one of the Western countries took the floor after my intervention, and it said that, I would advise the CSIPM to refrain from using fake Russian narratives in our discussions. I was bringing numbers from the FAO, from UN organizations, and their only argument is fake Russian narratives. And it didn't go, by the way. I did everything I could. I did all the research I could. I spoke again and again in every discussion before the MIPA was finalized, and it fell because the CFS chair himself, back during that time, he told us in a meeting, when I asked him that you should do more to include this, and he said that this is a very sensitive and political topic, that if we include it in the MyPow, the work of the CFS would be halted.
Well, this is part of what people don't understand about how the UN works, and maybe you can explain it a little bit to us or the viewers. The Committee on World Food Security has a huge different constituency representations: the states, the governments, the civil society,
the private sector, the philanthropies, the UN organizations, WFP, WHO, they are all included in this committee.
So you have the Bill Gates and others that have say in what is happening,
have
plus
a big
the
say.
Corporations.
Yeah.
Yes, and so you're not. It's not a fair playing ground.
No, not at all.
Not at all. And most of the groups like yourself don't have finances to spend on creating
lobbying
and or writing huge reports to try to fight these billionaires and the governments and corporations that are trying to control food on the planet. But your work in the civil society and indigenous people mechanism allowed you access to a lot of groups that are doing similar radical, revolutionary, liberationist work. And your time in Brazil is probably, and work on Palestine probably has already given you access to indigenous and other civil society groups that are of the same caliber. And during your time, there's been multiple very big files that happened. You mentioned Syria, but there was also the earthquake in Syria and Turkey. There was the Sudan civil war, and of course the Gaza starvation genocide. Tell us about those files, how when you entered the Committee on World Food Security, how you had to deal with these files.
You've mentioned in the beginning of this that in the civil society and indigenous peoples mechanism, you had the place to meet a lot of revolutionary allies, and maybe you want to call them colleagues, friends, whatever you want to call them. This is what you would think. I'm going to be very honest about this because I was very honest about it within the CSIPM. I never wavered from telling them the things as they are, because we're not speaking about things that you could just play soft on it. We're speaking about the destinies of peoples. And so I'm going to be very honest that this is what you would expect, but the reality on the ground is not like this. It was shocking, to be very honest, to find that a civil society and indigenous peoples mechanism would actually replicate the same world order and the oppression and the silencing that you would expect to face in the face of governments, for example. And this to be replicated within the CSIPM, the type of casting away, the type of silencing, the type of oppressing voices. And this was not expected. You would expect to find a lot of allies, and I did not find a lot of allies. You would expect many type of people to be your allies, but they are being put against you by raising, for example, issues that are not very related to food security and to our main struggles as peoples. And through these issues, they are putting you against each other. It's a kind of manipulation, if you want to call it. And so the space itself, before getting to the CFS, you had many troubles to get consensus on issues that should be very acceptable by everyone in such a space, because it is the struggle of the peoples. We are very alike in our struggles. But even here you have the layer of the CSIPM to get the issues up, and then you have the layer of the CFS with the governments. So within this CSIPM, we worked on the Syria-Turkey statement. For example, in this statement, we wanted to demand, we drafted the statement from the Arab region. Then we put it to be endorsed by all committee members of the CSIPM. And you would be surprised that your language is not accepted. How you describe things and how you describe your struggles by your fellows and your colleagues in the civil society is not accepted, not by governments, but by your fellows in this space. So, for example, we wanted to demand the lift of all sanctions on Syria for the sake of humanitarian aid to be unhindered during such a very hard time. And we even used quotes by UN special rapporteurs on the issue. And we spent weeks after the earthquake. It's only a statement that's going to be posted. We're not changing really on anything on the grounds of reality. It's only adding to the voices around the world demanding this. And it took weeks of discussion in order for us to put out this statement, because many in the civil society wanted to remove the language about sanctions. They didn't want, let's say, restrictions. What is the issue with saying sanctions? It's our language. We eventually succeeded in posting this in the name of the CSIPM, clearly using the word sanctions and using the words of the UN special rapporteurs.
And on the file of Sudan.
On the file of Sudan, it was
civil war there that is actually financed by the UAE and the Israelis. It
was very also shocking to see that. A statement about Sudan, what could be so, let's say, what could make a dispute in Sudan when you're just speaking about the humanitarian situation there? So also we in the West Asia constituency, I drafted the statement, and I said in the statement the African Arab country. Sudan is an African Arab country. And we sent the statement to also be endorsed and accepted by all committee members of the CSIPM. And we were really surprised to find that an edit was requested. Two edits actually, is to remove Arab from the African Arab country on Sudan. They wanted to remove Arab by people from Britain, and they are black, and they are supposed to be your, among your strongest allies in such a space. I mean, our struggles are very similar.
It's because of how successful the Zionists have been in creating, trying to create a schism between sub-Saharan,
between black and Arab Africans.
And for all those who don't know this, Lebanon is part of Africa. Actually, the African, shelf cuts through the Dead Sea, through the Bekaa
You're going to
Valley.
make a lot of issues with
Palestine
definition Lebanese now.
Palestine is part of Africa. Even the African plate
they're not going to be
itself.
happy with this.
And Arabic is not a race. It's a culture.
Exactly.
It's a language.
Exactly. They took me to discuss this. I was discussing through history. I was discussing with African and Arab. Black and Arab are not in contradiction. They are not even the same category.
Yes.
Of description. And eventually, also after weeks and weeks of discussions and very hard discussions, we released a statement saying the African Arab country, and we removed the language that they wanted to add about putting the Arab, like they wanted to say that the black Africans that are being marginalized and discriminated against inside and outside Sudan, We removed this language again, and we added, we successfully, and kept, not successfully, it's something very normal, we kept the word African Arab country. And this brings us again to the Gaza. The Gaza statement, I had, the Arab group in the CSIPM is small. It's a very small group. So we were only five people in the CSIPM, and we were not all on the same line, if you want to say this. I tried as much as I could during my time there to unify the Arab group. I succeeded to a certain extent, but some people remained on their own positions. And so on the Gaza statement, my colleague from Palestine, which is a very hardworking colleague, we drafted the statement. And by the way, I would mention this, that before October 7, in May also, when we were drafting the Sudan statement, there was an aggression, Israeli aggression on Gaza. It was only maybe for 3 days or so. Yeah. And so we released also a statement back then. So this was before October 7. Starting October 7 and the beginning of the genocide in Gaza, we of course had to the CSIPM to release a statement. The secretariat of the CSIPM, which is not supposed to intervene in any political content, it's only for administrative arrangements. They drafted a statement and they said, look, we drafted a statement upon requesting that we do a statement on Gaza. Look at it, do your edits, and let's put it with your edits to the coordinating committee to discuss. We were supposed to draft the statement from the first beginning, but we took what the secretariat put, and my Palestinian colleague and I, we worked on it, and we sent it back to the secretariat to be put for discussion in the coordination committee. I'm not going to speak a lot of details. The process, as in the previous statements, but this time much more, it was very untransparent. We did not know at all who was making the edits, who was requesting them, who was rejecting or objecting on certain language in the statement. It was very untransparent. It was very unjust. It was lacking professionalism in the work terms. We were surprised that they sent us a edited statement that was talking about it was because of 7 October that this and this and this was being done in Gaza now, that it was clearly speaking about Hamas and the hostages there, and it's like putting the blame in a certain way or justifying what was being done in Gaza. Of course, we completely rejected this, and we were not being told who is making these edits. And it's a very key principle in this space. The transparency is very important. It's a key principle that should not be surpassed. After also very hard days of discussions, my Palestinian colleague and I, and what the secretariat did back then is that they took the statement that was amended in this way or edited in this way, and before our approval or anything, they sent it to the committee to be discussed. And at this point, my Palestinian colleague and I said that if this is how things are going to go, we are going to disengage from the process. We're going to send an email for everybody, not only inside the CSPM, but outside the CSPM and the working groups and everything, to let them to know that the affected constituencies and regions are going to disengage from the process. We are not going to endorse the statement at all, whatever it said, even if they amended it at this point in our language, because they treated us in this way. We were going to disengage, and we were going to deprive the CSIPM from the honorable stance that they put on a statement at this hard time. And they stand as they should with the people of Gaza. And Lebanon, of course. We did mention also Lebanon and what was happening in the south back then. And this is how it ended. It was a shock, to be very honest, inside the CSIPM and its working groups and all the organizations that are working. It was a shock that the constituencies felt this silenced and oppressed, and I don't know how to explain it more. It was a very big shock, but we did not release a statement about Gaza. What happened is that during the plenary of the CFS, I did an intervention on the part that was being also argued, and it was a very big dispute that was going to be put on Gaza in the CFS final statement after the plenary, which is the most important meeting of the CFS that happens one time each year. I gave the intervention, but I wasn't in Rome at that time, so I gave it online. And I I spoke about how the long time being spent on discussing language in this space, and eventually all what we are doing is not it's not even on the grounds, it's not affecting directly on the ground. So even language, we're being deprived the right of language, and while language is being discussed and discussed and discussed, people were being killed and massacred, and in hospitals, in schools, they are being starved to death, they are being thirsted to death. And after this, I put on our demands and what we wanted to include in the final statement or report of the CFS, the UN committee.
It's been like almost 5 years now that you're
4 years. 4 years. My mandate will end in a few months. And I don't have the right to renew it. It's 2 years. You as a person, on behalf of your organization, you get at the first beginning 2 years of mandate in the seat, and then you can renew it, or your organization can re-elect you for 2 additional years, and you get only this.
That's it.
So it's 4 years. You serve 4 years in the seat.
And obviously this is negative for organizations that are working on long-term issues.
Of course.
Because they will need to train somebody again from zero on these
This
issues.
is actually, you highlighted this point, it's actually, I feel that it's actually a tool to keep someone in the seat who is not very experienced, and they need time. To be very honest, when I was elected to the seat, I needed several months to understand the space, to understand the layers of complexity in the space, and to understand how I can work. How can I get the issues of the region into the discussions of the UN committee, and how to get them into their final reports. If I could also mention, because you spoke about the Bill Gates Foundation, they had a process. They included it in the former MyPow. It's about data collection on food systems, data collection and analysis on food systems and food security around the world. And to be very brief, the purpose of this paper as a guideline, it spoke a lot about the openness and the ability to collect data wherever you want, whenever you want, use it however you want. It should be open for everyone, the open sources, and you know. So I participated in this process as well during my mandate, and it was a process that had negotiations. So not all processes in the CFS go to negotiations, because not all the processes will lead to a guideline that is sent to all countries. It's not a mandatory guideline, by the way, but it's a guideline that the CFS releases to countries to work with. You know, like we say that you should work on this matter, this and this and this and this. I participated in the negotiations, and now after these negotiations, I do understand what it means to negotiate something in these spaces, and it's very, very hard and very complex. What I wanted to add through the CSIPM to this is that it's sensitive. The data collection is sensitive around the world, but it is more sensitive and more harmful and more dangerous, especially in areas of war and conflict and protracted crisis. I gave example during the negotiations, and the countries were all present, that the calorie count that the Israeli occupation did on Gaza before this genocide, of course, it was maybe in 2008, 2009, and after a few years it was like leaked, and everyone learned about how the Israeli occupation studied Gaza, studied the food system in Gaza, in order to make a calorie count for the people like you, Laith. You could stay alive, but stay hungry and not very healthy if you get like 2,000 calories per day. And this is how they would allow food to enter to Gaza through a calorie count that would keep the entire population of Gaza under the siege, fed, but on the verge of hunger. You understand this? Yeah. How sensitive this is? And I did the intervention, during the negotiations, this was a main point that I was putting. And of course, many countries were not happy at all. Mostly after my interventions, there were a number of countries, Western countries, that would immediately take the floor after me and accuse me of something, you know, like the fake Russian narratives. I remember, for example, after the Gaza intervention in the plenary, which I mentioned earlier, the US took the floor after me, and they did this often during discussions and negotiations. And he said, like, the representative said, I really, was something that he's...
He condemns.
He condemns the use of this highly political language being used in the plenary, and that he was surprised that I failed to mention what Hamas did, or this and this and this.
Well, I've never said this before on air, but my father used to be a translator at the United Nations, and worked at the FAO and at the International Civil Aviation Organization, the ICAO. He at one point, the ICAO was going to hand over all the airport data in the world to a private corporation owned by one of these billionaires, and it almost passed, and it was just because my father, representing the union of the workers at the ICAO, put a motion on behalf of the workers to block this, and argued that, of course, the data of all these civilian airports in the world should be kept by the governments and not given to a private corporation. This is part of what's happening, I'm guessing, with the information of food sovereignty, where the problems of having a billionaire like Bill Gates control the information, or the seed banks, or what have you.
They put on this proposal after the deadline, and the CFS should have never accepted the proposal because it was outside the deadline for sending proposals. And not only it was taken as a proposal, but it was taken into the multi-year plan of work, adopted. It was something that was put after a deadline. So you find that the lines are moved, the red lines, the principles, the rules are moved here and there to, And clearly, I noticed that at many times there were countries that would put on a stance, and then we go to a break, and after the break they changed the stance. We were voting one time about the sanctions issue, and I do remember that during the count of vote, we agree to include this, we don't agree to include this, so everyone was voting, the countries. And I do remember that 3 maybe countries or 4 countries voted yes to include, and then voted no.
No.
They said they took the floor again and said, by mistake we said this.
Oh wow. So this is how it works, and sometimes some states wake up and veto, as happened in the International Civil Aviation Organization. China and Russia at that point vetoed it and kept all the informations of their own airports safe from reach of these corporations. You moved to Brazil. That's a huge move to the other side of the world, and you are living in the area close to the border with Paraguay and Argentina. There's a big Lebanese and Arab population there. Tell us about this move and how you're thinking about using your relations that you had with the landless movement in Brazil, and indigenous issues and the food sovereignty issues. How do you bring that to Brazil and build relations on there?
To be honest, if I had more time, it was a very big move, to be very honest, and I needed a lot of time to settle down and to get used to the place and to build over, starting your life all over again. And if my mandate was longer, I do believe that from there I would have been able to make much more work, and I would be able to communicate directly with the people who were working from Brazil within the committee. But unfortunately, my mandate will end. I could still be present through the working groups, because you don't have to be a CC member to participate in the working groups. And maybe I would go to this option later on, after I settled down with my relations, as you said, we worked with them on the issues of Palestine and on the issues of food and agriculture and all. I might keep my relation to the space through the working groups and be able to make more influence by connecting between Lebanon and our friends and allies and colleagues and the landless movement, which, by the way, do support Palestine in an amazing way. So this would be a thought. It's a new place, it's a different culture. Even the Lebanese there are different from the Lebanese here. So you need more time to understand how the society they built there, or the community they built there, is alike or different in many ways than here. I look forward to this, to be honest. If you allow me, Laith, to again go to the coordination committee of the mechanism. In the CFS, the Arab countries are represented, but they are not present. This was a very big issue. During my work, I needed to rely a lot, not only on the allies that I could do inside the civil society mechanism, and for the reason I explained to you, it was not also very easy to make allies within the mechanism.
They're there, but they're not present? It means their representative is not showing up?
Yes.
Wow.
So I needed to make allies with country representatives, because when I put a proposal or I do an intervention, I need not only the CSIPM to be with me, because once I put the intervention, it means that they are with me. Yeah. So I need the country representatives to say, yes, we support this, we support this, we support this. And the absence of the Arab representatives and the West Asia representatives, like we're speaking Iran, we're speaking Turkey. Pakistan, Turkey, all of these countries, I lose more allies. So it makes my work harder. Like I do remember I tried one time with Indonesia. Sudan is there. Sudan is always attending, but the rest of them are not. And their absence is making the work even harder. And it's really, they say it's a matter of resources, that they have only, for example, this delegation that is working at the FAO and at several UN organizations at the same time and at the CFS, so they don't have the time. But they should have more people there that could attend all the time and could uplift the issues of our region, because we alone at the civil society cannot do this. We are only few in the civil society. With them, we could do a lot more. With them, we could gain more points at the CFS. We could include more issues at the CFS. So this is something to highlight, and I wish that it does change.
Well, this is definitely a big loss for the Arabic world and our region, that the governments are not taking this seriously and or not putting any budget into this work. There's so much that we can talk about, but I wanted to touch on one last issue. You have experience, obviously, through this committee of interacting with other indigenous peoples in the Americas, in Oceania, on these issues. And as an Arab from Lebanon, married to a Syrian, working on Palestine, how do you see the similarities between the colonial experience of these indigenous people and their struggles for sovereignty, including food sovereignty, with us here?
It's very similar. We almost should be all the time on the same line because we are so alike. The only difference is that maybe we are still amid the height of our battle, while maybe they, for many reasons, were deprived of this opportunity and they are now coming back to it, which is really great. But maybe for several years before, their struggle have been brutally, how do I say this, brutally
suppressed,
exactly. So we should be on the same line. There are a lot of similarities between what we fight for and what they fight for. They are also deprived of their food sovereignty. They are even losing even the reservations that they live on in the United States and in Canada, for example, and maybe in Brazil. Even these reservations are not safe from pipelines and all the destruction that the governments are trying to do. So they have a big issue of food. The problem that, and I'm going to be very honest about this, and I hope that my honesty is taken as out of love and respect and not out of, let's say, demeaning or anything. They have been, in these spaces, in my experience, they have been given other priorities. And this is why you find yourself that, as I said before, the people whom should be your allies, your closest allies, your safe allies in this space are not, because they are being driven into other priorities that are not food, that are not liberation, that are not the key struggles to our lives and to our existence. We are threatened by our existence, and they are threatened by their existence. So your priorities should be towards this. And this is why I also truly hope that we could build stronger relationships exactly, or to be more specific, in these spaces. Because outside this space, I had a lot of people that I communicated with for Palestine and for the issues of our region, and they are amazing and they support you with fully, and we support them fully. But in these spaces, in these political platforms, it's different. The people are different. The people who represent the indigenous peoples are different. Their priorities are different than the other peoples that I know from the indigenous communities.
So you say like their representation is on par with Mahmoud Abbas?
If you want to describe it like this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is what happens.
I do believe that they deserve a better representation.
The colonial structures.
And we too, of course, we as Arabs, as I mentioned, we do have this issue as well. And this is why I was not maybe a preferable person in the space, because I didn't say what everyone wanted me to say. Because I did have people from the civil society and from the NGOs present, and like sit with me and like give me an advice, like don't say this, like don't be this like clear, and you're gonna lose a lot. Lose what? It's only words on papers that we are releasing. Lose what? If words on paper are going to be whitewashed or whatever you want to call it, what is left for the real work on the ground?
Yeah, if you can't fight over or make a stance over a word,
what are you going to
take a stance over land
exactly.
or life? Mariam Mohammad, food sovereignty activist and coordinating committee member at the Committee on World Food Security at the United Nations. Thank you very much for being with us. We hope Markaba is rebuilt fully. We wish you the best on your time in Brazil with your new kid and your husband, and we hope the day comes when Arabic women can give nationality to their children and to their husbands. These are all colonial plots to stop us from integrating and breaking the psycho-speaker borders. Thank you so much for being with us, and we hope to see you again. This was Laith Marouf from Free Palestine TV. You're still watching Wartime Cafe. We're in Nostalgia Coffee Shop in Al-Dahi. Go to our website, freepalestine.video, to donate so we can continue bringing you this programming. And until we see you next time, I bid you all a free Palestine.